Welcome to Sacred Conversations, a place where Dr. Nicole Dolan and I, Robin Bethel, along with a myriad of guests, explore some of the sacred threads and wholeness of life, held within the light and within the dark, held within the immensity. Thank you for being with us. In this episode, Nicole and I again return to this piece of time, at the precipice, as we recently called it, with both of us leaning into a sense of completion we can energetically feel while we still continue to move in the dark. Within this space, Nicole and I each feel ourselves coming to a place that is deeply new, even as it draws and builds upon the past year and many years of transformation. And here we know we're ready to share our deepest soul gifts. Whoever you are and whatever your own journey looks like, we know this piece of time is meeting you too so profoundly. We send you a lot of love as you move through your own dark and light into the new year or into whatever new arc of time when you're listening. And we hope you enjoy listening today.
Welcome to Sacred Conversations. Today we have Robin and myself in Sacred Conversation. And just like we started our last episode, I think we called it At the Precipice. We were talking a lot about being in a time of life where many of us are this year, right? The year of the snake, the year of 9, the year of the completion. Many of us are shedding and coming into new roles, identities, beginnings, lives. So that's still very much present with me, Robin, as I imagine it is with you, though we haven't gotten into it
Yeah.
yet. So I'm not saying we have to go there, but I'm just opening us up and checking in with you today and seeing where we go.
Yeah, well, hello. I feel for me, everything we talked about a few weeks ago, it's the same pretty much. Although I will add one of the stories that I'm living into that I have a really deep felt sense of knowing, along with unknowing in the story. I thought I had kind of hit maybe like where I most needed to go, the most towery moment within it a couple months ago. I think once I said to you in a text, it felt like a crescendo. And then it felt like I was just kind of sitting in these non-crescendoing notes, holding that for time rippling out around it. And that was true. But then just a couple days ago, I had another thing happen where then I was just, sitting there. And when I felt into what was moving through me, I was just like gasping for air, sobbing, and just feeling that power of it. I felt like it was a piece of subconscious fear that I don't know I was really that aware of, and it was just like with me in moments, but it felt like I was meant to come here to let this move through me, really like release and fully be in my power. I feel like so much of this story is bringing me so deeply into that. And I just mean like, then this power to just move so finely and so subtly and so just right, with tiny whispers and just, power to be so in my space of just being love and creating in love. This moment the other day, a piece of one of the stories hit a deeper level of crescendo, I would say, that was almost very subtle. It was one of those things where it's like such a tiny little lingering thread. Like it's so tiny, you weren't even very conscious of it. But in this time of the precipice, the anaretic degree that we talked about, it's just so many subtle, thin gossamer threads, that aren't necessarily a piece of the largest aspects. And it's just this like subtle refinement that's also crescendo. And anyway, so that was last week.
Yeah, I feel like I can say I too am walking what I've been calling the path of the mystic, you know, in the sense of I've always Maybe not always, but I mean, kind of always. I was going to say, I've always been in deep trust with my intuition. And then when I kind of stop myself and I say, wait, maybe not always, it's like, well, it's always been there. And maybe even more so than I even knew. I have friends from 20, 30 years ago that are like, Nicole, you've always known, you've always been intuitive. And so it's been reflected back to me that maybe even before I was conscious and aware of it. But where I'm going is to say, I feel like that deep inner knowing has always been, I don't know, like maybe a little bit more comfortable or something. Like I've always been very comfortable risk taking and, jumping off the cliff and trusting, right? Because for me, it's, that's what life is about. I don't want to play it all safe, right? But I do feel like this level, if you will, of intuition that you're talking about, this deeper trust, this deeper knowing, and maybe trust is really the word here, is calling even me into the depths of my soul and being like, okay, it's kind of scary to admit what is happening or like what I know, or it's kind of scary to even open to, possibilities that completely change everything, right? So that's really what it's felt like for me is I feel like so many people are talking about, this year really being like a year where a lot of people crashed and burned, a year where a lot of people died an old self or ego, right? And then coming anew. A lot of relationships are ending this year. So a lot of completion is happening. But what I would say, at least for my experience, and it sounds like yours too, and so I'd be curious, about our listeners' experience too, is like to trust what is coming in the new, what feels like it is aligning is such deep psychic threads, like soul life, maybe past life, knowing stuff that it's just like, it's not as clear as other intuitive decisions I've made before, if that makes sense. And I don't know if I'm saying that very well, but it's other intuitive decisions for me may be examples of like, I've decided that I want to open an office somewhere. So, all right, I'll, put that intention out there. I'll feel into the waters and see if it's time. And what naturally happens for me every time, because my intuition is spot on, is literally the last office I opened. The woman that we came into agreement with, it was so funny because I said to her, what's really funny? I was like, I actually just put this out into the ethers, right? And just said, like, oh, I really like for this to happen if it's meant to. And she's like, what's really funny? I actually chose not to advertise and to call somebody in. So I have such deep trust in those things, right? Where it's like making business decisions or like moving, I made a choice to move my family, right? With like no real evidence that I should do so. like, but this one feels deeper, quieter, and also, the other thing I would say too is I feel like a lot of us are also really revisiting past threads, past life, past stories in this completion year and probably going forward. So I hope I'm naming that well. I know that both of us hold really deep personal processes and are very open, especially myself, in sharing a lot of it. But right now, there are things forming that I can't quite give name or structure or concrete space to yet.
Yeah, and I think you said, I don't know if we talked about it on here or in another conversation, but like some of these things now, it's like having these knowings a little more in the dark that can't be confirmed um, in a shorter term and like flowing with that. But one thing from that day when I was like, oh no, I was supposed to get here, which was just a few days ago, part of it was in feeling into this like slight subconscious fear that was there that I didn't even know really that was there because it wasn't really with me. Um, in releasing that, that's where I'm like, I meant to just release any of these tiniest things. And in knowing what it was, then I was able to be like, well, no, like that wouldn't happen. And that ties into my knowing. So it's like holding a lot of unknowing with knowing. And part of what feeling into that knowing is like, I thought of a I don't know, this just like this flash came in my head, but I thought of a figure skating pair, and, like someone is below and then they're holding their partner up in the air, right, and swirling and twirling and throwing them over ice and they're spinning and they're trusting in that person holding them, right, but, like, they created the choreography together, and it feels very much like when I feel into the divine, it's a sense it's like I created this choreography too,
Yeah.
I just, like I don't have the conscious remembering of all of it, but I feel like my soul, like, the piece of divine that's within me was the piece of, like, the unified divine before it, in whatever metaphorical way fractured how I hold it, and like a piece in all of us. But so it's like I feel like I have a knowing of exactly what will happen. And when I connect into that, it's like because I know the choreography, there are aspects of unknowing within the story, but then I feel like there's certain things where my soul just knows, it's like this is why this is happening, this is what it's about. So a certain piece that led to something that wouldn't allow that at all, like couldn't be a piece of it because that's not what the story is. It's like,
Mhm.
anyways, that's just more kind of circling around something. I mean, it has to do with the story I shared on here already, just this trustful journey. But it's interesting. There's so many little tiny threads releasing, and the other story I haven't shared about on here, even things releasing there energetically and moving that, I thought like, oh, I thought we hit our grand finale of energetic releasing a couple months ago again. And then being like, oh, like here's another level. So it is really interesting.
Yeah, I feel like we're in a time where the story continues to deepen,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so also trying to find language and articulate what I'm sharing too is it's like I guess you kinda said it there a little bit before where you're like it's like we're going from I forget how you said it, but it's a different kind of unknowing, and it's like a knowing that you're being asked to trust in the dark.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and it feels I mean, at least for me, and I shared on our last episode about this, I was giggling about it. I was like, "I'm very Capricorn in the way that I
Yes.
handle this knowing." I hear the message, and then I would like some
Right.
reassurance, some confirmation, and then I'll make big giant leaps, you know?
Yeah,
But this is different.
yeah,
It feels different, and so, I don't know, maybe it just lies in more of a I use the word mystic, right? Like, it's much more a feminine energy, it's much more a, walking in the dark and trusting deeply,
right.
and there's, I think, so many emotions that come with that. I mean, at least for myself, there can be days where I'm like, "Okay, this is crazy." But I know that that's my mind and my ego and, everything in me that wants things to stay the same and be exactly stable because that's more comfortable. It's not my soul, it's not my heart, and so, yeah, really working through layers to come into alignment, and something that brings up for me, and I don't know if this resonates for you, but I wasn't really using this new age, or we could say old spiritual, I'm not sure, language about timelines necessarily. I've always kinda used the language of, like, realms, like, I've often felt like I don't live on the same planet as some other people do, like, we're in kinda different realms or something, I've always felt that. But this language that I've heard more and more in the last couple years about timelines, I was like, "Well, that resonates with my realm theory." And I've been feeling it. Like, I've been feeling like, did my soul, like, jump a timeline? Like, is my like, because I feel like my soul is, like, over there, it's good. We already made these decisions. We already figured this out. We already, and my nervous system and my body, my psyche, like we all have to align. And so I don't know if you're experiencing that at all, but that's something that's definitely happening to me right now.
Yeah. I feel like there are a lot of different terms that are used out there that I can roll with, and some people might use them in a really precise way. And I may or may not align, but I'm like, I know what you mean. I feel what you mean. And so for me, timelines is one of those things. I feel definitely just in the way that this whole year has felt like I knew this year was moving me into a space where everything changes, you know? It feels like an extent where you could say it's a totally different timeline, but I feel like within our own lives, I think we have these periods we talked about. Both of us felt the last, I said, like, almost 8 years, almost as a crucible, and not to say, I mean, there were things before that too, right? But there was something and then time and something, and now it's felt like a really compressed space of inner alchemy or whatnot, and I think some of us are experiencing something like that, that really is like, well, you need to be in this certain place really quickly, and so we've had this, and I know this isn't always going to be the space. It feels like it's preparing me. It has prepared me for like where I'm going to need to be. And it's going to like, it is different enough. Um, the place that you're brought to after those years that I feel you could use language like it feels like another timeline because things are working so differently. How everything moves in your life is going to be like quite different. So that's kind of how I hold it. I definitely feel it though with you that I felt it all year. Like things are radically changing in two stories, and one of them have been moving in the dark for like almost 5 years. And this other one just started happening last fall. So a little over a year. And I just like, I can feel them coming into their completions and, yeah, it's really holding together this knowing and unknowing. But
Mhm.
I sometimes think it's like it is like this really intricate movement in the dark where it's like walking this tightrope and just feeling you're like 2 steps over here, but then it's like, then lift your arm here and then dip down here, and all of your movements affect the next movement, and you're like, am I 8 miles away from like you just have to keep moving based on the movements, all without that kind of confirmation. Not external confirmation, but the internal confirmation to me feels like, I mean, as large, as solid most of the time as like the floor I'm walking on, you know?
Mhm. Mhm.
So, yeah, it's been a really interesting journey. And I think that in coming into that level of trust, it really is like a deep preparation for then being able to move so deeply attuned with this mystical space of self, this connection to deepest soul that's a part of universal soul, and just the deepest psychic energies. It's funny, I feel like I don't use the word psychic very often. I feel like we usually say intuitive or whatnot, but essentially, though, that's what it is. It's like psychic energy, mystical energy connected to the universe, the divine, that piece of yourself that knows how to interpret it. Um, even, like if you have tarot cards, I feel like when talking to people about that, you can just flip the cards and rely on what's in the book and what is this telling me exactly? Or it's like, what's the compass within that allows you to just like see something and know where it belongs in the story, I feel like that's all of our psychic energy and we all have it. And a part of what makes it powerful is just what level will you trust it?
Mm. I love that, and I hear so much of you in there. I just wanna reflect that back to you. I hear and see so much of Robin. I mean, one thing that's coming through really clearly is like, yeah, and that's why you're a writer, right? And an editor and a creator. It's you do see those things in story and in language and in image. And so it's really beautiful. And the other thing I'm holding is I'm grateful that you have been walking this path. And when I say this one, I want to say longer than me in the sense of holding such knowing in the dark. Because I've been watching you do it for years, and it's something, to go back to your beautiful image of ice dancers, ice skaters, right? It's like it gives me a place to be held in a way too, because it's not a common way of life, right? And I hope that people listening feel that too, if this is happening for you, or if you are conscious of it, that you're not alone. Like we
Mm,
are walking this together. And I think that those of us who are attuned to that, like you said, the other thing that was coming up is you're kind of leaning into purpose there too. Like you're speaking about being prepared for something, prepared to walk differently in this world. And I certainly resonate with that too.
yeah, I feel like the world needs a lot of us now to really be like in our deepest power as souls. So I just want to say something back to you. I feel like something so beautiful about you, Nicole, is you're such a beautiful reflector back to people of their
Mm.
being. You do it so often. So I really appreciate that about you.
And
Mm.
yet you are the reflector, right? Like the human design, isn't that what you are?
I don't know. I don't do anything with human design. I
I'm pretty
actually
sure you told me that one.
no, no. Well, I mean, I feel I'm meant to reflect things in the world. Well,
Okay.
I say that, but it's not attached to human design. I actually don't know anything about human design, and for someone who's so in love with astrology, I really don't have interest.
Mhm.
But I know a lot of people find it really beautiful. Maybe the terms feel too clinical to me. Maybe that's why I don't have a lot of interest, but no, I don't know what that is, but I do feel like I, as a person, am meant to reflect certain things in the world, just people can see and however it's meant to meet them.
Mhm, mhm.
I feel like we're talking about so many things right now that are deep and multi-layered, and we've shared pieces of them. Even for the story, I really shared a lot about recently. And in this extra piece, I'm not being very specific. Can I mention a couple really specific fun things for
Absolutely.
both of us? Okay, so I don't think I told you this. I started last spring in 2025. I started sharing these, what I call guided imaginings, that are, you could call them guided meditations, or they are a little more story oriented, but in a way, it's something that I started doing for just like I had just done it before for 2 different men in my life. It was like such a movement of love, and then I felt like I was meant to share this more widely, and I recorded some, and then, most of the year went by, and then we started Sacred Conversations. I have another podcast, Voice Note Me. I've been doing a lot with poetry. It's just all these things layering in, and then I recently felt called to bring more energy back to that, and so I'm gonna start creating more of those. And then I knew I also wanted to put them on YouTube with some sort of images, just because I feel like YouTube is a beautiful place to meet people in a very kismet y way, right? Like what comes up. But that's a skill set that I really don't have, like filmmaking, right? But I have a friend, and we recently decided to help each other with a couple different things. I'm going to help him with some book things, and he's going to teach me all that video stuff and also probably just do a lot of it for me too. And so I'm probably going to start getting them out on a YouTube channel in December, like at least one of them, and start doing that. So I was really excited about that, and it felt like acceleration of something I knew was meant to come next. sooner than I thought it would because I was like, "Oh, wait, I don't even need this skill set yet because my friend is gonna help me." So that is my fun thing. So soon we will have Imagine and Flow on YouTube, and I'm
Mm,
going to start doing, a lot more of those. And I feel like in all the things that have happened in the last year that are like creating in love, I mean, I love all of them. Like, I feel so called to writing and poetry. I love this podcast. I love Voice Note Me, but there's something just like, I don't know, the energy behind creating these guided imaginings and meditations to meet people just feels like, in a way, the most concentrated like, piece of my heart that I'm offering people, and so I just think that's really lovely. So there's a fun note and a
yeah.
concrete thing. And then, Nicole, do you know what I'm thinking about for you?
Not positive, but
I
hey,
was gonna say you are thinking of starting another podcast.
yes. Yes, I'm leaning into the guidance around it and feeling into what feels right, and we were talking about potentially working towards that this month, and then this month kinda hit me like a freight train and was like, "Okay, you've got so many things going on." So, yeah, I'm in the process right now of potentially, hopefully, signing with the agent that I would really like to sign with for my book and all things to come from that. And so I'm kind of in this in between space as to when to step into that. But yes, I am feeling very called, mostly because I'm, you know, I'm deeply spiritual and intuitive and live in this realm, but I also live in a very clinical realm. And so there's a part of me that I started really paying attention to even here in our conversations, right? And we were feeling it in the beginning. So I love that this is what's happening with it because I think at one point we were kind of feeling like, oh no, is this like maybe not going to, not like it's not going to work, but like, are we going to kind of go these ways, or at least that was my fear. And I was like, "No, I love doing this with Robin." Like, yeah, I mean, I love that it's, like, growing and people are listening to it, and I love what we're doing, but, like, honestly, I just love that, like, we get together and do
Yeah.
this because it's such sacred sisterhood for me, and it doesn't always happen, right? So so that is my own personal, like, I was like really feeling into like, okay, but what does this voice want? Like, what is happening? And the more that I allowed it space to breathe, it was like, okay, but it is really important for you to have a space where, because I am teacher, I am clinician, I am coach.
Yeah.
And so that's what's really been coming alive, right? Like, and one of the examples I can give is like, we'll be talking about something that feels, like, deeply sacred and soulful, and it is, and I also find myself being like, "Oh, and let me tell you about ADHD and, like, multiple streams of consciousness," and, you know? So so, yeah, it's landing, it's just not 100% clear as to its direction yet or its timing. We'll see if a miracle happens and we release something on my birthday in January or not. But I'm in a different phase right now where the answer for me to reach the next stage, grow the next potential, jump the next timeline, if you will. The answer used to be yes, no problem. I don't care how hard it is. I don't care what it takes. I will make it happen. And I feel as though my journey through the art of chaos also taught me that one of the reasons I was doing that, not only it's a sole purpose too, right? It's a part of me that does create and does have, stead strong strength to get to that top of that mountain. But it's also a part of me that was always choosing responsibility and duty and mission and wasn't allowing myself to relax back and just to be present and more calm and still and slower. So I'm also trying to honor that truth. And that is a very long winded way of saying, I don't know when it's coming exactly, but it is on its way.
Yes, yes, okay, that's how I hold it too. It's like, it feels to me like you are for sure doing it. It's just
Yeah.
a matter of when it comes out.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think the thing that I'm holding honestly is is really feeling into, and I know I mentioned this to you and you're like, "It's nobody's influence but yours, Nicole. Like, you have to make the decision." I'm like, "Yes, yes, yes, I know." But I wanna say I'm working with a beautiful branding, marketing person right now who I just appreciate so deeply, and he's kinda teaching me how we're going to work with teaching, something like depth psychology. I think, less than 1 or 2% of the population understands depth psychology, right? So I have to be really mindful about meeting people where they're at. And so I kind of need some guidance too, because I am so high functioning and I am so intuitive and I am so fast. I'm often like light years ahead of people. And I don't mean that with any ego. I just mean like I've had to learn, even as a therapist. I'll give you an example. I became a clinical director and supervisor pretty quickly after becoming a therapist because I didn't stay with my clients. I didn't meet them right where they were at and like kind of sit in the dark with them. Instead, I kept like shifting them and they all appreciated it. They were like, "No, you're doing the right thing." But there was something in me that knew that it's because I was meant to teach. So, anyways, that's where I am now. I'm really trying to find the ground of how do I meet people where they are? How do I bridge the gaps and like help people kind of along that journey for themselves so that they can really start to see the depth, the purpose, the meaning, the beauty in their lives, right? Like talk about me being a reflector too. Like I love when I can help somebody see that the fragments of their story creates an entire picture. And so yes, I'm very passionate about it, really excited. I think I'm just needing a little guidance when it comes to maybe grounding.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, it'll be really fun though.
Yeah.
So this is December when we're talking right now, and this could come out December or it could come out in January. So, yeah, I mean, either way, we're like leaning into a lot of new.
Mhm. Yeah. A lot of new is coming, and that aligns, right? We're going into a year 1. I know you're not big into
Mhm.
numerology, you said, but you can feel it, right? Like, you can feel so
Yeah,
many
that
things
feels very aligned.
Yeah.
It really does. I do have to say, I looked up, there are some cool numerology things. I found out because when Aniston was our guest, I just looked a few things up. It never really resonated a lot. I'll just share like what I told you, Nicole. If you look up my personal number, everything I read about it in a few places just said something like, "You are so business minded. You're going to like achieve high corporate success," like all these things. Like you are driven in like a very type A corporate ladder sort of way, which is just, it's kind of a joke. And then one of them had a different way of holding it, like one thing that I ever saw, which is like, well, okay, I could actually see that, but it's radically different from how the rest would interpret that. Oh, but one neat thing, I found out that I guess you have numbers for name vibrations too.
Okay.
And I'm sure there are lots of names you could find that out, but this number, it listed like 5 names that had that vibration, and it included my name and my son's name, Gabriel. Having
Wow.
like the 5 examples they used, and I was like, "Oh, that's really sweet."
That is really sweet.
Yeah, there are cool things about it. It may be very like astrology where it's easy to come to it with, um, like just take the most common denominator and what it looks like in most cases and stamp that as this is what it means. When reality maybe is a lot more multi-layered and subtle.
Yeah.
And, people aren't really reading it and what you look up online. Like they're not really bringing that level of complexity. So yeah. Well, I mean, it has some cool things. I just I think that, I definitely feel the 9-year and the 1 year, so
Mhm, mhm. Yeah, I'm not big into it myself, and it's just because I'm so busy with other things. I find all of this, like, so
Right.
fascinating. I study all of it. I don't really know. I should add the caveat too, I don't really know human design, so there might not even be a reflector, so let's just
I
put
think I've heard
that
of that.
so let's put that aside. But I have such great appreciation, and I love when we have guests that, like, share something like
Yeah,
that too, because it's just like,
yeah.
"Oh, I love to learn about it." One thing I do love, I think I believe it falls under numerology because it's numbers, as the life path number. I don't know if you looked that up, but,
That's what I think mine was kinda funny.
okay, okay.
Yeah. If I'm remembering right, mine is 17, and I actually have a
Well, but
huge
then
thing with
that would make you
17.
an 8. I do know that.
Exactly. So, but
So
the
mine's an
original
11, but then it
11
makes you a 2, but if you have an 11 or maybe a 22, let's not get this all wrong. For people that are listening, they're like aces in numerology, you can chime in. But an 11 would lead to a 2, but it's called like an 11 over 2 because it's like a master
if
number,
it's a
I
master
guess.
number.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Yes, I've seen that. I don't know what 2 means, but
Well, I know that 2 is very much about, like, balance and partnership and,
okay.
things like that, but the
Yeah.
11 part is very, builder-esque, like, we're which
Yeah.
which aligns with,
No, it fits. So
yeah,
for me, the number, the 8, I think that's the one that was like, again, like, maybe this is wrong, but if you, because 'cause I've only looked it up, like, once or twice, but if you look up 8, that's where it's like that description I was saying that was so like, wow, that couldn't be further from the truth. But, again, I feel like I did see one place where they defined it way differently, and so I think it might just be like, what level of complexity do you bring, you know?
right,
So,
yeah, and
yeah,
and also, like, I think something that's interesting about that comes through, at least right now, even just intuitively, is, like, you've even mentioned that you feel like you're meant to lead. You don't use the language lead because you don't speak really in that way necessarily, but to guide others, which is, I think, where our leadership is going. And thank God. And let me give you a small example about that. This is not happening right now, but I was in communication with somebody at one point about the possibility or potential of, so we'll just put it that way, of sitting on a Fortune 500 board at some point, maybe one day. And when that crossed my mind, it was like, I don't know if that's me, right? Like, I certainly don't wanna be in, like, some big think tank with, like that's just not me, right? But what really started coming through, not just through that experience, but also I have clients that are being called to very high positions or even working in positions in companies that they may not naturally be someone who would lean towards, let's say, or align with fully. But what I'm seeing is it feels like it's because, and there's something really beautiful about that, right? Is that those of us who are going to be leading, guiding, it's like, thank God, eventually they're going to have people like us in the places that can really make change in the world in a positive way. And I don't wanna say that in any, like, inflated way, so I won't even speak about that
right.
personally, but just if we just think about it that way, it's like, I mean, I know you, me, and anyone listening is like, thank God, that there could be
Yeah,
people in the systems that influence the bigger change in the right or the most aligned ways. So, that's a lot in regards to what you said.
yeah, I
But you
know, and it's so funny.
maybe you are.
Well, I feel like the one that I read that was like, okay, I could see this one was more, now I don't remember the exact language, but it was more like, you will be like, there's something you do very well, kind of a
Mhm.
thing. Like, there's something you do very well. You will probably be known for this thing that you do very well, like, you will be seen, something like that, or it might have been like, you will be a leader in this space of something you do very well. Maybe it talked about, creativity, I don't remember, but it was just something that's framed more loosely in this space, and the other ones, I think they're just like, I guess maybe just taking on, like, this American version of success, but it really, they plant it as, like, you are this very, it's very business world, it's very, like, top of the ladder, like, you're so ambitious in, like, this external materialistic success accomplishments way, just because I feel like that's the template of the world that we live in, you know? So anyways, it just reads as completely empty to what would be any insight into me, but I could see there being, like, kind of a heartbeat behind that that's being interpreted in a very particular way that aligns with our culture, and, like, the heartbeat can actually be more open-ended, dependent on a million other things, so anyway, so this one other one had a little more room. But yeah, I think a lot now, like when we talk about we're being prepared, it does, it feels like to be leaders in a way, but it doesn't have to look like what we think of as leaders. It's really just like, to be seen and to do what you're meant to do and to just be in so much alignment with your soul that all the things that are needed are going to flow from you,
Yeah.
and just like so many of us are being prepared for that because the world really needs it in this moment. Feels like soul journeys, across eons could have been bringing so many of us to this place through a certain threshold where then like our fullest soul gift is ready to be given. Not that we're perfect by any means, but like that everything is gestated and moved to the place where the gift is always being given, but it's like a really full bodied aspect of gift in so many ways is now ready to meet the world, in this time. And then
Yeah.
people younger, the kids, I feel like they are going to have their deepest heart prints. I meant to say heartbeat imprinted on what rises, but I guess that works too. I don't know if we've talked about this before, but I feel like our generation or older or younger, but like we and the generation below us, it's like we're both so deeply destined to be here at this time. And that being said, I feel like my own role, like, I will just however it sounds, I'll say I feel like so deeply called to be like a huge force of love in the world, and I know fully I will realize that in every way, like, the way that matters most to me as a mother and as a lover and just like a to the world, right? Like, mother to world. And I feel like my sense of destiny is very deep. And all of that being said, I feel like the biggest piece of that is really to like come so deeply into my own magic, we could say, my own power and magic to then like teach the generation younger than us how to go into theirs. It's
Mhm.
like I feel like they have the deepest role in this destined unfolding. Like we are so deeply destined in it too, in this really transformative way. But it's like there's a piece of it that belongs most deeply to them. Our role, I think, is like we're kind of like the Obi-Wan Kenobi role. Everything relies on us doing this thing, but then like it's to we have to find this within ourselves to share it so they can then access it and then really like I think they will be the ones to rebuild the world. Like we will be there too. We will, but I feel like they're so important. It's like both generations together and ultimately they're like everything.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I can really feel into what you're sharing here. And I think that first, the word I want to use is becoming. I'm really resonant with that to describe this process of deep embodiment over healing, growing, learning over time, like all these things that have been happening to integrate, I feel like is us becoming, which is really us becoming fully ourselves. And the other thing was I've heard I was speaking to somebody about this the other day and I really appreciated they were talking about how I forget what they said or how they said it, but it was basically the discussion around embodied leadership, and they didn't use that language, they were just more speaking to, like, how many coaches there that's what he was saying. He was saying that he's like, "I think one of the most beautiful things is that there are so many coaches, people, calling themselves healers, advocates, etcetera, in the world right now, but I really hope that they're doing that deeper work, and also it seems like they're also living really challenging lives right now." He said something like that, and I just shared, I said, "Well, I think that we're really being called to embodied leadership," which as a depth psychologist, I love. And even my shadow loves because it's like, okay, good. We're all doing our work now. And I can tell you a really funny story about that. I'm giggling because it's so embarrassing. So I had this moment the other day where, okay, I was reading this thing about how, like, you know, we're going to go into this new earth and all of this, everybody's going to upgrade basically. Like everybody is going to move from this deep unconsciousness to like we're all awakening, right? And there's something so beautiful about that, Robin. and, and I had this like total shadow moment. Okay. Like I'm talking like victim martyr shadow that came alive.
I know what you're gonna say already.
Did I tell you this already? Or
I feel like I know
you
what you're
already
gonna say.
know? Okay, because you could
It
feel it.
might not be right.
And this total victim martyr, and I just wanna put it out there, like, if you haven't done your shadow work, trust me, you have a victim martyr in there too. Because we all have these, what Jung would say were archetypes, but it's just different parts of the being that are, have to integrate over time through our own work. So, anyways, I don't present in the world as a victim martyr archetype, but I had this major victim martyr moment. And I was like, okay, all right, that's a little weird. What's happening there? And it literally was like this part of me being like, what, does everybody get a participation trophy? I was like, I have journeyed through the depths for like 20 years, like I had like this total, I mean, not a complete pity party, but I could just like feel this shadow part of me. And it was so funny to me. And then I told a client this story and I was like, I can't believe I'm telling you this. And I was like, but the funny thing about it is I was like, well, if I don't tell you, I might walk around my house slamming the cupboards while I'm like cleaning and mad that somebody else isn't doing it, right? Like you don't see me in my
Yeah.
suffering. I was like, so this is what an integrated victim martyr archetype looks like. It was
There's
like
a
this whole inner process of hilarity, internal family systems journey. And it was just so funny to me. But then it was reflected back to me through time and just different conversations that it was like, and my own integration was like, okay, it's actually really, really beautiful that people are waking up. And yes, they're still going to have to go on their journeys into their truth, Nicole. They're still going to have to do their shadow work. They're still going to have to integrate, but it was so funny because I was like, I had just a little part of me that was throwing a little bit of a fit, like, "Have you seen what I've been through?" It was so funny to me, though. I was giggling so hard. I was like,
that
"Oh,
is
wow."
funny.
And I love it too because I have done deep shadow work. I have done deep healing work, right? So, instead of seeing those parts of us and being like, "Oh my god, like, that's not me," or projecting it onto someone else, it's just like, "Oh, that's hilarious. That lives in there somewhere." So,
Yeah.
um yeah, but there was also in the integration of that, there was also this really beautiful landing too of like, okay, but I'm someone who incarnated ahead of time. I will say that, meaning like I have been in deep knowing and I have not felt like I have fit into this world my whole life in ways. I mean, I found ways to fit in, I found ways to connect and enjoy, a lot of it. But there's been a part of me too that has felt really alone in the dark, really alone in the deeper process. And so there was also this like deep resolution of like, okay, I've come into such deep healing. I mean, I don't think we're ever done, but I've come into such like awakening and even like purification. Like I feel like I'm not even carrying the things that I used to, even as part of the story. It's like it's still there, but it's not in my body anymore. So now I can really actually hold to speak to you, like sharing, like I'm coming into like my greatest gift. I'm coming into my full becoming, right? My wholeness. It's like I've been doing this work, I've been giving this gift, I've been giving myself for so long, but now I'm stepping into it from a place of I'm no longer carrying that path. And so I can actually really, really guide one through theirs without needing to carry it myself. So a lot of beauty. came through this full circle journey, and I forget how we got there, but it's a story that wanted to be shared.
Morology, I feel like. Yeah, well, we're just coming into this really monumental piece of time, all together, and we all have our paths with it. And it's just like we're all here on purpose. So
Yeah,
we're all here
absolutely.
at the
We are
right
all
time.
here on purpose, and I really resonate with what you're sharing as far as, like, the time that we chose, and I think that that part of you that really feels into, like, yes, we are doing the work so that or we are integrating and coming into wholeness so that our children can bring forth their gifts, right? But it's interesting how each of us holds it a little bit differently. Like, you hold it as mother of the world. I hold it as, we're not just here to break cycles, we're here to build new systems. And that is very much what my journey one of the things my journey through a lot of chaos has taught me is to create new structure, to create new
Yeah.
beginnings.
Yeah. You're very much like keyed into that piece. I feel like I've always felt called more on an individual level to like meet people and help them deepen into their heart and their self in a way that's not on the systems level, right? And that is such a Capricorn energy, like the build the system. And yeah, I feel called in certain places there too. So
Yeah.
it's going to be so much.
Hmm. Well, as we come into landing, as I can kind of feel us shifting into that space, is there anything else that you want to share with us today?
I don't think so. Not that's coming to me right now.
Okay.
What
Yeah,
about you?
I think that feels complete. I'm wondering when this might come out, if it comes out before the end of the year, wishing everyone a happy new year and
Yeah.
really honoring this completion cycle. We've spoken about it now in 2 episodes, and it's worthy of that, right? Because it's been so intense. It's been really a journey of so much change, and so I like that we've taken that path and we've spoken to that, and then we've also come into purpose and meaning and really trusting the next steps forward.
Yeah. Mm. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you for being with us today. If you feel called, follow the podcast wherever you listen and connect with us on Instagram or YouTube at sacred.conversations.podcast. And most of all, may you keep opening to yourself, to the mystery, and to the story within you that's still being written.